Claire Bennett walked into the hospital with a quiet strength that didn't match the fear in her eyes. She was 29 years old, just entering her second trimester, and already carrying more than just a baby. She carried silence, loneliness, and something deeper, something she hadn't told anyone yet. Her long brown hair was tied back, her face soft with tiredness. She wore a loose sweater and jeans, but there was no hiding the glow of pregnancy or the weight behind her smile. A nurse called her name, Claire Bennett. She nodded and followed her to the exam room. Minutes later, the door opened again. Dr. James Hart stepped inside. Tall, calm, with kind eyes hidden behind glasses, he introduced himself with a warm voice. "I'm Dr. Hart," he said gently. "I'll be overseeing your care from now on." Claire gave a small smile. "Thank you." James sat down, flipping through her file. Then he looked up. "You're here alone?" Claire hesitated. "Yes." James studied her carefully. He had seen many expecting mothers come through his clinic, some surrounded by family, others with partners, some full of joy. But Claire, she felt different, like she wasn't just carrying a child. She was carrying something else too, pain, hidden beneath her calm. He asked the usual questions: past medical history, any complications, support system. Claire answered quietly. "No major issues," she said. "Just fatigue lately." James made a note. "And your partner? Will he be joining us for future visits?" Claire's lips pressed together slightly. "I don't have one." James raised an eyebrow. "Family?" She shook her head. "No one close." James met her eyes. "Well," he said softly, "you've got someone now." Claire blinked. James smiled gently. "I'll make sure you're not going through this alone." Something about his voice broke through the wall she had built. For the first time in weeks, Claire let out a slow breath. Not relief, not happiness, but something close to it. Hope, because for once someone saw her, not just as a patient, as a person, and maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. The weeks passed, but Claire's pregnancy didn't go smoothly. At her second appointment, James noted the changes: high blood pressure, mild spotting, and fatigue that seemed to deepen with each visit. "Have you been resting enough?" he asked gently as he reviewed her latest scans. Claire gave a small shrug. "I try." James frowned slightly. "You need to rest, not just try." Claire nodded, but something in her eyes told him she wasn't taking it seriously. That night, after work, James looked over her file again. He made a note at the bottom of the chart. High-risk pregnancy. Patient emotionally isolated. Needs closer monitoring. He didn't know why he added that last line, but something about Claire unsettled him. Not in a bad way, in a way that made him want to protect her, even when she wouldn't protect herself. It wasn't long before things took a turn for the worse. One evening, Claire collapsed in her small apartment bathroom. She had no one to call, no family, no partner, just pain and fear. When the ambulance arrived, the EMTs recognized her from past visits. "She's under Dr. Hart's care," one said on the radio. By the time they got to the hospital, James was already waiting. He rushed to her side as she lay pale and shaking on the stretcher. "What happened?" he asked gently. Claire blinked up at him. "I don't know," she whispered. "I just fell." James checked her vitals quickly. Then he held her hand. "You're okay now," he said. "We've got you." Claire swallowed hard. "I don't want to lose him," she said, voice trembling. "I can't." James met her eyes. "You won't," he promised. "I'm here, and I'm not letting go." They kept her overnight for observation. James stayed later than usual, watching her sleep through the night. Maggie, Claire's best friend, showed up in the morning, breathless and worried. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there," Maggie said, gripping Claire's hand. Claire smiled weakly. "You weren't supposed to be." Maggie turned to James. "Thank you," she said. "She doesn't have many people." James gave a small nod. "I'll make sure she has someone," he said. And somehow those words carried more weight than any medical advice. Over the next few weeks, Claire returned for regular checkups. James became her doctor, and slowly something else. Someone she could talk to, not just about the baby, but about everything else. About how scared she was, how tired, how much she missed having someone beside her. James listened without judgment. He offered reassurance when she doubted herself. And sometimes he just sat with her, silent, steady, present. One afternoon, after another stressful day, Claire looked at him. "I don't know what I'd do if you weren't here." James studied her face. "You'd still be strong," he said. "But you wouldn't have to be alone." Claire blinked back tears. James reached for her hand. "You're not alone anymore," he whispered. And for the first time in months, Claire believed it, because someone finally saw her, truly saw her. And for once, she wasn't invisible. She was seen, and that changed everything. Claire was put on strict bed rest after her emergency hospitalization. No more walking long distances. No lifting anything heavier than a cup of water. Just rest and constant monitoring. James stayed by her side, checking in more often than he should have. Late at night, when the halls were quiet and most doctors had gone home, he would stop by her room with 2 cups of tea. "You didn't have to come," Claire would say, smiling faintly. "I know," James replied one evening, handing her a cup. "But I wanted to." They talked for hours. About books, about music, about dreams, and slowly about deeper things. Claire told him how she used to write poetry before life got heavy. James shared that he once dreamed of being a writer, but chose medicine instead. "You ever regret it?" she asked. James shook his head. "Not until now." Claire raised an eyebrow. James gave a small smile. "Now I think I missed something." Claire tilted her head. "What's that?" "A story worth telling," he said. "Right here, in front of me." Claire looked down at her hands. Then she whispered, "I don't even know if I'm worth saving." James met her eyes. "You are," he said firmly. "You always have been." One night, as rain tapped softly against the window, Claire finally opened up. "I used to think I deserved this," she admitted quietly. James frowned. "Deserve what?" "The loneliness," she said. "The fear." James sat forward, listening carefully. Claire exhaled slowly. "My ex," she began. "He wasn't good to me." James nodded. He had suspected. She continued, voice barely above a whisper. "He used to say I was too much, that I made things harder than they needed to be." James swallowed hard. "And you believed him?" Claire nodded. "Sometimes." James leaned closer. "Then let me remind you of something else," he said gently. "You're not too much." Claire blinked back tears. "You're just right," he added. "Exactly who you need to be." Claire looked at him, really looked. Then she whispered, "Why do you keep doing this? Talking to me like I matter." James smiled slightly. "Because you do," he said. "And sometimes people forget that when they feel alone." Claire let out a shaky breath. "I guess I did." James reached for her hand. "Well," he said, "I won't let you." From then on, their connection deepened. James brought her books to read during recovery. He played soft music through his phone when she couldn't sleep. He held her hand during painful contractions. And most importantly, he listened, even when she cried without words. Even when she closed her eyes and tried to hide the pain, he stayed. And somehow that became the greatest comfort she had ever known. A few nights later, Claire turned to him. "How do you stay so calm all the time?" she asked. James gave a small chuckle. "I'm not." Claire blinked. "You're not." James shook his head. "I worry," he admitted. "I get scared. I hate seeing someone hurt and knowing there's only so much I can do." Claire studied him. "Then why do you still come back every night?" James paused, then answered honestly. "Because I care," he said. "More than I should." Claire's heart skipped a beat. James quickly added, "Not because of rules or duty, but because of you." Claire felt warmth spread through her chest. She whispered, "I've never met anyone like you." James gave a small smile. "You will," he said. "Someday." Claire looked away. "I don't want anyone else," she admitted. "I want you." James hesitated. Claire looked back at him. But I know that's impossible. James swallowed hard. It is, he said quietly. But that doesn't mean I won't be here. Claire gave a small nod. And though neither of them could say it aloud, something had changed. Between them, in the silence, in the late-night talks, in the way James stayed even when no one else did. Because Claire wasn't just another patient. And James wasn't just another doctor. They had become something more. Something unspoken. Something real. And even if they couldn't name it yet, they both felt it, deep in their hearts. One night, Claire sat up in her hospital bed, staring at James as he reviewed her chart. She had been quiet for days, not out of fear this time, but something else. Something heavier. James looked up and noticed the way she was watching him. "You okay?" he asked gently. Claire hesitated, then whispered, "I used to think I deserved it." James frowned slightly. "Deserve what?" Claire looked down at her hands. "My ex," she said quietly. "He used to say I wasn't enough, that I was broken, that no one else would ever want me." James set the chart aside. "And you believed him?" Claire nodded slowly. "I didn't know how to stop believing it." James studied her carefully. Then he asked, "Do you still believe it now?" Claire blinked back tears. "No," she whispered. "But sometimes, the old thoughts come back." James sat beside her, setting his glasses on the bedside table. "Tell me," he said softly. Claire swallowed hard. Then she began. "He started with small things," she said, "like calling me too emotional. Then it got worse." She looked at James. "He'd push me," she admitted, "slap my arm, grab me too hard." James' jaw tightened. Claire continued, voice shaking. "But I stayed," she said, "because I thought maybe I really did deserve it." James shook his head firmly. "No one deserves that," he said. "Not ever." Claire wiped her eyes. "I told myself he loved me," she said, "that I could change him." James reached for her hand. "But you couldn't." Claire gave a shaky breath. "No," she whispered. "And when I got pregnant, he left." James listened without interruption. Claire met his eyes. "I didn't cry when he walked out," she said. "I just felt empty." James squeezed her fingers gently. "That's trauma," he said. "It doesn't always feel like pain right away." Claire nodded. "I guess I'm only starting to feel it now." James gave her a warm, steady look. "You're healing," he said, "even if it feels slow." Claire let out a soft laugh. "I don't even have a family to help me," she said. "Just Maggie. And even she has her own life." James tilted his head. "You've got me," he reminded her. Claire studied him. "I know," she said quietly. "And I don't know why you keep showing up." James smiled faintly. "I do," he said. "Because you matter." Claire's chest tightened. She had heard those words before. From Maggie. From strangers. Even from herself in the mirror. But coming from James, they felt different. Real. Like they were meant for her. Later that week, James brought her a book. The Little Prince. "I used to read this to my little brother," he said, handing it to her. Claire opened it and saw something tucked inside. A letter. "Dear Claire, you are not broken. You are not alone. And you are not invisible. You are strong. You are brave. And you are worth more than anyone who made you feel otherwise. Love, Jay." Claire closed the book gently. Tears welled in her eyes. She looked at James. "You wrote this?" He nodded. Claire sniffled. "Why?" James met her gaze. "Because someone needed to remind you," he said, "that you're not what he made you feel like." Claire leaned into him. And for the first time since arriving at the hospital, she let go of some of the shame, some of the guilt, some of the belief that she was unworthy. Because James kept telling her the truth. And somehow she finally believed it. Over the next few nights, their talks went deeper. Claire shared more about the abuse, how she used to hide bruises under long sleeves, how she canceled plans with friends so no one would see the marks, how she stopped going out altogether. James listened without flinching, without judging, just listening. One evening, he asked, "Did you ever tell anyone?" Claire shook her head. "No," she whispered. "I thought it was my fault." James sighed. "It never is," he said. "No matter what anyone says." Claire looked at him. "What if I start forgetting that again?" she asked. "What if I slip back into thinking I'm nothing without him?" James met her eyes. "Then I'll remind you," he said. "Every time." Claire's heart beat faster. "Even after I leave here?" James gave a small smile. "Especially after you leave here." Claire felt warmth spread through her chest. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was something close. Something real. Something she hadn't known in a long time. Safety. Care. Belief. And in that moment, she realized something. She wasn't just healing from pregnancy complications. She was healing from years of silence. And James was helping her find her voice again. It happened in the middle of the night. Claire had been sleeping when a sharp pain shot through her abdomen. She gasped, sitting up quickly, sweat forming on her forehead. Then came the contractions. Not just one, but several. Too early. Way too early. She grabbed her phone with trembling hands and called the only person she knew would answer. James didn't hesitate. Within minutes, he was on the line. "Are you okay?" he asked immediately. Claire's voice shook. "I don't know. Something's wrong." "I'm calling for an ambulance," James said. "Stay calm. I'll meet you at the hospital." By the time Claire arrived, things were worse than anyone expected. Her blood pressure was dangerously high. Her oxygen levels were dropping. And worst of all, the baby was coming far too soon. 28 weeks. Premature labor. James rushed to her side the moment she was wheeled into the delivery room. His face was calm, but his eyes showed something deeper. Worry, fear, care. He held her hand as nurses prepared around them. "You're going to be fine," he told her gently. "We've got this." Claire blinked back tears. "I don't want to lose him," she whispered. James squeezed her fingers tighter. "You won't," he promised. "We're going to fight for him." And they did. The next few hours passed in a blur of flashing lights, shouted commands, and the steady beat of the heart monitor. Claire cried out with each contraction. James stayed beside her. No mask, no gloves. Just a man who had long stopped seeing her as just a patient. And a woman who trusted him more than anyone else in the world. Then it happened. The final push. A cry filled the room. Soft, weak, but real. The baby was here. James looked at the tiny form being carried to the NICU. He turned back to Claire. "He's fighting," he said. Claire let out a shaky breath. Tears streamed down her face. Not just from pain, but from relief. She reached for James' hand, and he took it without hesitation. "You stayed," she whispered. James gave a small smile. "I always will," he said. Claire closed her eyes for a moment. Then she whispered, "What if he doesn't make it?" James met her gaze. "He has your strength," he said. "That means everything." Claire swallowed hard. "And me?" she asked. "What if I don't make it either?" James' chest tightened. He leaned closer. "You already have," he said softly. "You made it through hell to get here." Claire blinked back tears. "And now," James added, "you get to see what comes next." They kept Claire overnight for observation. James sat beside her bed, watching her sleep. Maggie arrived in the morning, full of excitement. "A boy," she said, hugging Claire carefully. "You have a son." Claire smiled faintly. Maggie noticed the way James still hovered nearby. "How are you doing?" she asked him. James hesitated. Then he admitted, "I almost lost both of them." Maggie studied his face. Then she whispered, "You love her." James looked at Claire again. "I shouldn't," he said quietly. "But yes." Maggie gave a small smile. "She needs someone like you," she said, "even if she doesn't say it." James nodded slowly. "I know." Later that day, Claire was finally allowed to see Noah. James stood beside her as she looked into the incubator. He was small, fragile, but alive. Claire's lips trembled. "He's so little," she whispered. James gave a warm smile. But strong, he added. Like his mom. Claire looked at him. You've seen me at my worst, she said. My weakest. James met her eyes. And I'll see you at your strongest, he said. I promise. Claire felt a lump rise in her throat. Then she laughed softly. You're not just a doctor anymore, are you? James gave a small, honest smile. No, he admitted. I guess I'm not. Over the next few days, James visited every chance he got. He brought Maggie coffee while they waited outside the NICU. He read medical updates to Claire. He held her hand when the news wasn't good. One afternoon, Claire turned to him. I named him, she said. James raised an eyebrow. Claire smiled slightly. Noah. James tilted his head. That's beautiful. Claire looked at him. It means resting place, she explained. Because he's mine. James gave her a soft look. I hope he finds peace, he said. Because he deserves it. Claire studied him. Then she whispered, So do you. James looked surprised. Claire continued, You stay late. You worry about us. You give more than just care. She reached for his hand. You deserve peace too. James looked at their joined hands. Then he gave a small nod. I think I found some, he said quietly. Right here. Claire smiled. And somehow that changed everything. Because now they weren't just doctor and patient. They were two people holding on to life. Together. Through fear. Through pain. Through hope. Claire remained in the hospital for weeks after Noah's birth. She was healing slowly, but surely. Her body had endured a battle no one should face so early in motherhood. And James stayed. Every day. Sometimes just to check on her vitals. Other times to sit beside her bed and talk long into the night. He brought her updates from the NICU, how Noah was breathing better, how he was gaining weight. One afternoon, she sat up with more energy than before. You're here again, she teased gently. James smiled as he pulled up a chair. I make it a habit, he said. You never know when someone might need me. Claire looked at him carefully. You've done more than your job, she said. You've been everything. James shook his head. No, he said. I'm just showing up. Claire gave a small laugh. That's more than most ever do. Maggie came often, bringing clothes, food, and laughter. But Claire found herself waiting for James more than anyone else. When he walked in, even late at night, something inside her settled. Safe. Understood. Seen. One evening, as they watched the sunset through the hospital window, Claire turned to him. Do you ever get tired of this? She asked. James raised an eyebrow. Of what? Of being the good guy, she whispered. James gave a soft chuckle. I don't feel like a hero, he admitted. Just someone who cares. Claire studied him. Why do you care? She asked. I mean, I'm just another patient. James met her eyes. You were never just anything, he said. You're a woman fighting for her child. And that makes you extraordinary. Claire felt tears sting her eyes. Then she whispered, What if I fail him? James reached for her hand. You won't, he said firmly, because you already love him more than anyone else ever could. Claire let out a shaky breath. And if I can't give him everything he needs? James gave a warm smile. You'll give him what matters most, he said. Your heart. Claire blinked back tears. Then she asked quietly, Did you always want kids? James hesitated. A rare silence passed between them. Finally, he answered, I did, but life got in the way. Claire tilted her head. What changed? James exhaled slowly. People told me I'd find someone, he said. But I guess I stopped believing that a long time ago. Claire looked at him, really looked. You still can, she said softly. James gave a small, grateful smile. I think I already did, he admitted. In a way. Claire's heart skipped a beat. She didn't ask what he meant. She already knew. Weeks passed. Noah grew stronger. The doctors finally allowed Claire to hold him. Just for a few minutes, just enough. She cradled him in her arms, tears streaming down her face. James stood nearby, watching closely. When she looked up, she caught his gaze. He's perfect, she whispered. James stepped closer. He has your eyes, he said. Claire smiled. Then she whispered, thank you. James frowned slightly. For what? Claire looked at him. For not giving up on us. James swallowed hard. I couldn't, he said honestly. Even if I tried. Claire gave a small nod. I know, she said. That's why it hurts. James blinked. Claire continued, voice quiet. You're going to leave soon, aren't you? James hesitated. I have to, he admitted. Before people start asking questions. Claire looked down at Noah. I understand, she whispered. James sat beside her. But I'll still be around, he added. If you need me. Claire gave a small smile. I always will, she admitted. James nodded. I know. As Claire's health improved, she prepared to go home. James helped her pack, handing her a small blanket with Noah's name stitched in soft blue thread. A nurse made it, he said. For him. Claire held it close. Then she looked at James. I don't know how to thank you, she said. James gave a small smile. You don't have to, he said. Just take care of yourself. Take care of Noah. Claire nodded. Then she whispered, will I see you again? James looked away briefly. I hope so, he said. But not as a doctor. Claire studied him. James met her eyes. As a friend, he added. If that's okay. Claire gave a small, grateful smile. It is. Back home, life wasn't easy. Noah needed constant care. The bills piled up. Maggie helped when she could. But Claire was mostly alone. Still, she kept trying. One night, overwhelmed and exhausted, she called James. He answered on the second ring. Hey, he said gently. How are you holding up? Claire let out a shaky breath. I don't know, she admitted. Some days I feel like I'm failing him. James listened. Then he said, you're not. Claire blinked back tears. How do you know? James' voice softened. Because I've seen you fight, he said. And I know you'll keep doing it. Claire closed her eyes. Then she whispered, I miss you. There was a pause. I miss you too, James said quietly. Another silence. Then Claire added, you're more than just a doctor to me. James took a slow breath. I know, he said. And that's why I stepped back. Claire understood. He had done it to protect them both. But even now, their hearts hadn't forgotten each other. And maybe they never would. Weeks passed. Claire had gone home with Noah, adjusting to life as a new mother. Exhausted, overwhelmed, but determined. James kept his word. He didn't visit as a doctor anymore. But he did come by just as a friend. First, it was small things. A text after work. How are you and Noah doing today? A delivery of baby clothes from the NICU parents group. Then came the phone calls. Late at night, when Claire felt like the world was too quiet. James answered every time. One evening, she called him again. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know I shouldn't keep bothering you. You're not bothering me, James said gently. You never do. Claire exhaled slowly. She hesitated. I miss talking to you. James swallowed hard. I miss it too, he admitted. There was a pause. Then Claire asked, do you ever think about us? James' chest tightened. He wanted to say no, but he couldn't lie. Sometimes, he said softly. Even though I know I shouldn't. Claire gave a small laugh. I feel the same way, she admitted. It's like, part of me still needs you here. James closed his eyes briefly. I wish I could be. Back at the hospital, people began to notice. Nurses whispered in the halls. Maggie raised an eyebrow every time James showed up with something for Noah. And then there was Detective Marcus, the hospital security officer who had seen enough to ask questions. One afternoon, he approached James near the clinic entrance. She's not your patient anymore, Marcus said casually. James nodded. I know. Marcus studied him carefully. You sure you're not getting too close? He asked. Because if anyone finds out. James sighed. It's not like that, he said. Marcus crossed his arms. I've seen doctors get attached before, he said. It always ends badly. James looked away. I'm not breaking any rules, he said firmly. I'm just helping. Marcus gave a slow nod. Well, he said, just make sure you don't lose more than your job over this. And with that, he walked away, leaving James standing there, heart heavier than before. Still, he kept showing up. Not every day, but often enough. He brought Noah tiny socks and soft blankets. He helped Claire change diapers. He held her hand when she was scared. And one night, he stayed longer than he should have. They sat on the couch while Noah slept beside them. Claire turned to him. You don't have to keep coming back, she said. James met her eyes. I want to, he replied, even if I can't explain why. Claire bit her lip. What if we both understand each other too much? James gave a small smile. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Claire reached for his hand. Or maybe it is, she whispered. James let out a shaky breath. I know what this looks like, he said, and I know what I should do. Claire studied him. But you're not going to. James shook his head. No, he admitted. Not yet. The next week, James found himself thinking about Claire more than usual. He thought about how she laughed when he read to her, about how she trusted him even when she didn't trust herself, about how she made him feel like he mattered, like he wasn't just another doctor lost in a system. And he realized something terrifying. He was falling for her, hard, fast, and against every rule he had once believed in. One night, after a long shift, he sat alone in his apartment, staring at the ceiling. His phone buzzed. A message from Claire. Noah smiled today. It was the best moment. James smiled slightly. He typed back, that's all I needed to hear. Then he added, thank you for letting me be part of this. He sent it without thinking, and regretted it instantly, because now she knew. She responded minutes later. You were always part of this, even before we met. James stared at the screen. Then he whispered into the quiet room. I think I love her. And that scared him more than anything else. Maggie finally said what everyone else was thinking. You're in love with her? She said one afternoon, watching James help Claire warm a bottle for Noah. James stiffened. I care about her, he admitted. Maggie tilted her head. That's not the same. James looked at Claire, laughing, holding Noah close, glowing despite everything she had been through. No, he whispered. It's not. Maggie gave a knowing look. So what are you going to do about it? James swallowed hard. I don't know, he said. I just know I can't stop caring. Maggie smiled faintly. Then maybe you're not supposed to. Claire was finally allowed to hold Noah for the first time. Without wires, without machines, just skin to skin. The hospital staff wrapped him in a soft blanket and placed him gently in her arms. She gasped. Her hands trembled slightly. James stood nearby, watching closely. Tears filled Claire's eyes as she looked down at her son. He's real, she whispered. He's really here. James gave a warm smile. And he's strong, he added. Just like you. Claire let out a shaky breath. Then she looked up at him. You've seen me at my worst, she said softly. James met her gaze. And I'll see you at your strongest, he promised. Claire smiled through tears. Then she asked something unexpected. Do you think he'll grow up okay? James tilted his head. Of course, he said. He has you. Claire blinked back more tears. I don't want him to feel alone, she admitted. Like I did. James sat beside her carefully. You won't let that happen, he said. Because you know what it feels like. Claire nodded slowly. James continued, voice gentle. That makes you a better mother than most. Claire let out a small laugh. I don't even have a partner, she said. How am I supposed to do this alone? James hesitated. Then he answered honestly. You're not alone, he said. You never were. Claire looked at him, and suddenly she saw it. The way he had always stayed, even when he should have walked away, even when others wouldn't understand. He was still there, still holding space for them, still believing in her. Later that night, James returned to check on Claire. She was sitting up, feeding Noah with careful hands. James leaned against the doorway, watching quietly. Claire noticed. "You keep showing up," she said gently. James stepped inside. "I know." Claire studied him. "What if I told you I liked it?" she asked. James swallowed hard. "I'd be happy," he admitted, "but scared." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Why?" James sat beside her. "Because I care too much," he said. "And sometimes caring leads to crossing lines we shouldn't." Claire looked down at Noah, then back at James. "What if those lines weren't meant to stop us?" she asked. "What if they were just there to test how much we wanted each other?" James exhaled slowly. "We can't," he said quietly. "Not while I'm still your doctor." Claire gave a small nod. "I know," she whispered. "But once I'm not your patient anymore." James looked at her, heart racing. Claire continued, voice barely above a whisper. "Once you're not my doctor." She paused. "Will you stay?" James didn't answer right away. He looked at her, at the woman who had survived loss, pain, and fear, at the mother who had fought for her child before he even took his first breath, and at the person who had somehow become his anchor too. Finally, he whispered, "If you still want me to." Claire gave a small, tear-filled smile. "I will," she said. "I already do." Over the next few weeks, Claire's strength grew. Noah came home soon after, tiny but healthy. James visited one last time. He handed her a gift, a soft blue blanket with Noah's name stitched into the corner. "A nurse made it," he said. "For you both." Claire accepted it with a grateful smile. Then she looked at him. "You could come over," she said. "Sometimes. Just as yourself." James gave a small chuckle. "I'd like that," he said. "But not yet." Claire nodded. "I understand." James reached for her hand. "I don't want to break any rules," he explained. "Not because I'm afraid of losing my job." He met her eyes. "But because I don't want to lose you either." Claire's chest tightened. She whispered, "You already have me." James looked at her, truly looked. "No," he said softly. "You have me." And somehow that changed everything. Because now they both knew. This wasn't just duty. It wasn't just care. It was connection. Real, deep, unspoken, but undeniable. One evening, Maggie found James outside the hospital. She approached him carefully. "You love her," she said. James didn't deny it. "I do," he admitted. "More than I should." Maggie studied him. "She loves you too," she said. "But she won't say it out loud yet." James nodded. "She doesn't need to," he said. "I already hear it in her silence." Maggie gave a knowing smile. "She needs someone real," she said. "Someone who sees her." James looked toward Claire's window across the hall. "I see her," he whispered. "Every part of her." Maggie touched his arm. "Then don't let go," she said. "Because she might not know how to ask you to stay." James gave a small nod. "I won't," he said. "Not unless she wants me gone." Maggie smiled. "She never will." Claire brought Noah home with a heart full of hope and hands trembling from exhaustion. The house felt bigger than it used to, empty in some ways but full in others. James had promised to stay away for a while. Not forever. Just long enough to let the lines blur back into place. But even without him physically there, his presence lingered. In every blanket he had given them. In every book he left behind. In the way he made her feel like she could do this. Like she was enough. Weeks passed. Noah grew stronger. Claire learned how to hold him without shaking. How to feed him. How to soothe him when he cried. But sometimes, in the quiet hours of the night, she still felt alone. One evening, after a long day of feeding, rocking, and pacing the floor with a crying baby, Claire sat on the couch, tired, overwhelmed, and on the edge of tears. She reached for her phone, and before she could stop herself, she texted James. "I miss you." She didn't expect a reply right away, but minutes later his message came through. "I miss you too. You're doing great, by the way. I can see it from here." Claire blinked back tears. Then she whispered to Noah, "You have someone who loves you, And somehow that love wasn't just hers. It was James, even from afar. A month later, Claire walked into the hospital for a final checkup. James stood in the hallway not as her doctor, but as himself. He greeted her with a warm smile. "I heard someone's getting big," he said, looking at Noah wrapped in a sling against her chest. Claire gave a small laugh. "He's gaining weight," she said. Finally, James looked down at the baby, then met Claire's eyes. "You look good," he said. "Stronger." Claire smiled slightly. "I am," she admitted. "Thanks to you." James shook his head. "To yourself," he corrected. "You did the hard part." Claire studied him. Then she asked softly, "Can we still be friends?" James hesitated, then nodded. "I'd like that," he said. Claire gave a grateful smile. And in that moment, something shifted. They weren't doctor and patient anymore. They were just two people who had seen each other at their lowest. And now they were learning what came next. Over the next few months, James visited more often. Sometimes just to bring groceries. Sometimes to help change a diaper. Sometimes just to sit with her in silence. Maggie raised an eyebrow one afternoon. "You two are really making this work," she said, even without saying it out loud. Claire bit her lip. "What if I do say it?" she asked. Maggie tilted her head. "Then maybe he'll finally admit it too." One evening, James showed up with a small gift. Claire opened it carefully. Inside was a tiny pair of baby shoes. White, soft, handmade. "They're beautiful," she whispered. James gave a small smile. "My mom used to make these for my nieces and nephews," he said. "Now I do too." Claire looked at him. Then she asked, "Did you ever think about having kids of your own?" James hesitated. "I used to," he admitted. "But life got in the way." Claire swallowed hard. "What if?" She paused. "What if life isn't done with you yet?" James looked at her. "What are you saying?" Claire looked down at Noah, then back at him. "I'm saying you're already a father figure to him," she said. "Even if he doesn't know it yet." James' chest tightened. He reached out and gently touched Noah's tiny hand. Then he looked at Claire. "You sure that's okay?" Claire gave a small nod. "You've been there since the beginning," she said. "You deserve to stay." James looked at her, truly looked. Then he whispered, "Thank you." Claire leaned forward slightly. "You don't have to ask permission," she added. "You're already part of this family." James felt something shift inside him. Something warm. Something real. And for the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was where he belonged. Time moved forward. James stayed close, not as a doctor but as a friend, a supporter, presence. But the world didn't understand. Not fully. At the hospital, whispers grew louder. A few nurses raised concerns. Detective Marcus watched him more closely. Even his boss pulled him aside one afternoon. "You've been spending a lot of time with that patient's family," he said carefully. James gave a small nod. "She needed someone." His boss studied him. "I know you care," he said. "But remember, boundaries matter." James swallowed hard. "They do," he agreed. "And I respect them." But deep down, he knew what Claire meant to him. And he wasn't ready to walk away. Not yet. Claire felt it too. The pull between them was stronger than either of them wanted to admit. One evening, she sat on the couch with Noah asleep in her arms. James sat beside her, watching the baby breathe softly. "He looks like you," James said quietly. Claire smiled slightly. "But he has your eyes," she added. James looked at her. Then he whispered, "I wish I could be more than just a visitor." Claire blinked back tears. "I wish you could too." Silence stretched between them, heavy with everything they couldn't say out loud. Finally, Claire asked, "What happens if we keep feeling this?" James hesitated. "Then we'll have to make a choice," he said gently. "One day." Claire looked at him. "Do you want to?" James met her gaze. "Yes," he admitted. "I do." Claire let out a shaky breath. "Then why are we waiting?" James closed his eyes for a moment. Because I don't want to lose you, he said. Not over something we rush into. Claire nodded slowly. James reached for her hand. We can't control how we feel, he said. But we can control how we handle it. Claire squeezed his fingers. I don't want to lose you either, she whispered. James gave her a warm smile. You won't. But then came the news. James had been offered a promotion across the country. A new clinic, new patients, new life. He didn't tell Claire right away. Instead, he visited more often, brought Noah more gifts, stayed longer during dinners, watched Claire laugh and cry and grow into the mother she was always meant to be. One night, after putting Noah to sleep, Claire turned to him. You're leaving, she said softly. James blinked. How'd you know? Claire tilted her head. You've been different, she said. Like you're trying to memorize us. James exhaled slowly. There's an opportunity, he admitted. A new position. Far from here. Claire nodded. And you want to take it? James hesitated. I think I should, he said. So I can stop pretending this isn't hard. Claire looked down. Then she whispered, You're scared. James gave a small, tired smile. I am, he admitted. Because if I stay, I might never leave. Claire looked up. And that's a bad thing? James swallowed hard. No, he said. But it means crossing lines I'm still not sure we should. Claire studied his face. Then she asked, What if I want you to cross them? James' heart pounded. He looked at her, really looked. And suddenly, the silence between them felt unbearable. I don't want to go, he said. But I also don't want to ruin everything. Claire reached for his hand. You wouldn't, she said. You're part of this life now. James gave a small, grateful smile. I don't know what I'd do without you, Claire added. James shook his head. You wouldn't have to find out, he said. Because I'd still be here. Claire leaned closer. Then why go? She whispered. James didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, Because I love you. Claire's chest tightened. And I love you too, she said. James looked surprised. Claire continued, voice steady. I don't know when it happened, she admitted. Maybe the first time you held my hand through pain. Maybe the night you told me I mattered. She met his eyes. But I know it's real. James stared at her. Then he whispered, I was so afraid to say it. Claire gave a small smile. I already heard it, she said. In your silence. They sat together for a long time. Noah slept peacefully nearby. Maggie stepped outside to give them space. Finally, James spoke. What does this mean? He asked. Claire tilted her head. That depends, she said. Do you still want to leave? James looked around, at the home Claire had built, at the child sleeping beside her. Then he met her eyes. No, he said. I think I found where I belong. Claire smiled warmly. James reached for her hand. I can't promise I'll be perfect, he said. I don't know how to be a father. Or a partner. Claire leaned into him. You don't have to be perfect, she whispered. Just show up. James gave a small nod. I will, he promised. Every single day. Claire rested her head on his shoulder. And somehow saying goodbye to the past became easier. Because now they were choosing each other. Not because of duty. Not because of rules. But because their hearts had already made the decision. And sometimes, that's all the permission you need. James didn't leave. He turned down the promotion, not out of fear, but because he had already found where his heart belonged. But not everyone understood. At the hospital, whispers grew louder. A few nurses avoided him. One even filed a formal complaint. Not about misconduct, but about emotional attachment. Detective Marcus approached him again in the hallway. You made your choice, Marcus said, arms crossed. Now you better be ready for the consequences. James met his gaze. I already am. Marcus studied him. Then he sighed. Just make sure she knows what she's getting into, he said. Because people are going to talk. James gave a small nod. I know, he said. But I also know this isn't just some fling. It's real. Marcus raised an eyebrow. And what if it doesn't work out? He asked. What if she decides you're not what she needs? James swallowed hard. Then I'll let her go, he said. But until then, I'm not leaving. Back at Claire's house, things were changing too. She started receiving messages from strangers online, people who had heard about her story. Some called James a hero. Others accused him of crossing professional lines. One message read, "Doctors aren't supposed to fall for patients." Another one said, "You think this will last? He'll move on when the drama fades." Claire deleted them without responding. But inside, doubt crept in. She wasn't blind to the rules, to the judgment, to the way society saw their relationship. And sometimes, late at night, she wondered if they were making a mistake. One evening, while Noah slept, Claire sat beside James on the couch. She looked at him carefully. "Do you ever wonder if we're doing the wrong thing?" she asked. James frowned slightly. "Every day," he admitted. "But not because I don't love you." Claire blinked. James continued, voice steady. "I wonder if I'm enough," he said. "If I can give you everything you deserve. If I can be the father Noah needs." Claire reached for his hand. "You already are," she whispered. "Even if you don't see it yet." James smiled faintly. "But what about the world outside?" she asked. "They don't understand us." James nodded. "They never do," he said. "Not until they live it." Claire leaned into him. "I used to believe I didn't deserve love," she admitted. "Because of my past. Because of what I survived." James pulled her closer. "But now?" he asked gently. Claire looked up at him. "Now I know I do," she said. "And I know you do too." James kissed her forehead. "I never expected to find this," he whispered. Claire tilted her head. "What did you expect?" James exhaled slowly. "To spend my life alone," he said. "To help others and pretend that was enough." Claire studied his face. "But now," James gave a small smile. "Now I have you," he said. "And somehow, that makes me feel like I'm not done living yet." Claire rested her head on his shoulder. And for a long time they just sat there, quiet, connected, whole. The next week, Maggie came over with groceries. She set the bags down and looked at both of them. "I've been waiting for you two to admit it," she said with a smirk. Claire blushed. James chuckled. Maggie walked over and sat across from them. "So what now?" she asked. Claire looked at James. "We take it slow," he said. "We build something real." Maggie nodded. Then she added, "But people are going to question it." Claire bit her lip. "I know," she whispered. "I already see it." Maggie gave a knowing look. "They always do," she said, "until they realize how deep love really is." She reached for Claire's hand. "You deserve this," she said. "Both of you." James looked at Maggie. "Thanks," he said softly. Maggie smiled. "You're part of this family now," she said. "No matter what anyone says." Time passed. Not quickly, not quietly, but steadily. And through it all, James stayed. He wasn't Claire's doctor anymore. But he was something more. Her partner. Noah's father figure. Their constant. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Claire turned to him. "You really didn't have to stay," she said. "You could have walked away." James gave a small smile. "I tried once," he admitted. "I couldn't." Claire studied his face. Then she whispered, "Why?" James looked at her, truly looked. "Because you're not just someone I helped," he said. "You're someone who healed me too." Claire blinked back tears. James reached for her hand. "I used to think my life was set," he continued. "That I'd work, come home to an empty apartment, and that would be it." He smiled softly. "But then I met you," he said. "And everything changed." Claire leaned into him. "And now?" she asked. James kissed the top of her head. "Now I'm here," he said. "For every sunrise, every late-night feeding, every moment." Claire smiled. And somehow that made everything feel real. Not perfect, but honest. The world still talked. Some people never understood how a doctor and a former patient could build a life together. Others called it inappropriate, wrong, dangerous. But Claire and James didn't let it stop them. They built their love slowly, with care, with trust, with patience, and with Noah between them, reminding them why it all mattered. One afternoon, Maggie visited with a grin. "I saw the baby today," she said. "He laughed when you two were talking." Claire raised an eyebrow. "So?" Maggie smirked. "He doesn't do that with everyone," she said. "Only with people who feel like family." Claire looked at James. Then she whispered, "He already sees you." James swallowed hard. "I hope he keeps seeing me." Claire squeezed his hand. "He will," she said, "because you're not going anywhere." James gave a warm, grateful smile. "No," he whispered, "I'm not." Months later, they stood in front of the mirror. Claire wore a soft blue dress. James wore a suit, one he had bought for this exact day. They weren't getting married. Not yet. But they were making a promise. To each other. To Noah. To the life they had built. Claire looked at James carefully. "You sure about this?" she asked. James met her eyes. "I've never been surer about anything." She smiled. Then she whispered, "Thank you." James tilted his head. "For what?" "For showing up," she said. "Even when you weren't supposed to." James chuckled. "I'm tired of doing what I'm supposed to," he said. "I want to do what feels right." Claire reached for his hand. "This does," she said. James nodded. It always did. They moved in together a few weeks later. It wasn't easy. There were nights when James still felt guilt for crossing lines he once believed shouldn't be crossed. There were days when Claire wondered if she was moving too fast. But through it all, they held onto each other, like lifelines, like home, like healing. And slowly they stopped worrying about what the world thought, because they knew the truth. What they had wasn't scandalous. It wasn't wrong. It was rare, real, and worth protecting. One night, after putting Noah to sleep, Claire sat beside James on the couch. She rested her head on his shoulder. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. James kissed the top of her head. "You already do," he said. "Every time you smile again." Claire closed her eyes. Then she asked, "Do you regret any of this?" James shook his head. "No," he said. "Not even the hardest parts." Claire looked up at him. "Why not?" James gave a small, warm smile. "Because I got to see you rise," he said. "From pain, from fear, from silence." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "And I got to be there," he added, "when you finally found peace." Claire's chest tightened. Then she whispered, "You found yours too." James blinked back sudden tears. "I did," he admitted. "With you." This story proves that healing isn't just physical. It's emotional. Sometimes the person who saves your life isn't meant to stay, but sometimes they do, because love doesn't follow rules. It follows hearts, and sometimes the most unexpected ones beat the loudest. Claire and James' journey shows that connection can be born from pain and grow into something beautiful, something worth holding on to, worth fighting for, worth believing in.